bridges inside. There's a stone that steals there are languages, others they are there are no understanding. There are languages, others they are poetry and all. There are no understanding. There are canyons, there are canyons. They are rank and bitter rank. They are fear, blind suspicion. They are apathy and pride. They are dark and sober. They are fear, blind suspicion. They are apathy and pride. They are dark and sober.
Another canyon there, that's right. Another wrong. Hello. We are back here with Bridges Programming. This is that was Bill Staines. I want to thank you, Bill, for I want to thank you, Bill. If I can get there we go. That was Bill Staines, and thank you, Bill, for Bridges. He allows us to play the song every so often, and whenever we start on, we like Bill. We feature Bill on our website, and we open up with his song every time we start Bridges Programming. And this is Sunday on the front stoop, and this happens to be Father's Day. I'm just hoping that all this stuff came out good. Okay, anyway, we are here with you Sunday on the front stoop, and Susan will tell you, and if you want to call in, we're talking about Pope Francis today, and we're with Dennis Carius, who happens to be a Roman Catholic. And I think I don't know if he's a personal friend of the Pope or not, but we have some people who are listening to us now on the room. Anyway, you can just, if you want to be on the show, please push 1 on your phone and we'll get you on. The Pope stuff is great stuff. Dennis is a Roman Catholic, and I don't think he knows the Pope. Dennis, do you know the Pope or not?
No, Jeff, we've never met, so I don't know the Pope personally, but I really think he's doing a good job.
Okay, and so Dennis is with us, and you can call in at 347-215-6731, and you can listen to our program there. The other thing is you can go into our chat room, Bridge to Humanity, and we've asked the Pope to come on our program if he wants to. He's more than welcome, and we think in my fact, I'm not Catholic, and I'm not even religious. However, I believe whatever the Pope is saying for the first time in my life, I may become religious. This is great stuff. He is really, and I think Dennis, Susan, and I actually went to see Bishop Hubbard, I think his name was, many years ago, to say, why don't you do renewable energy on all your churches that you can? And he said, I can't talk about that. Well, now the Pope is giving him a directive. Maybe he can talk about it now. So we need to have, we need to start talking about how do we help humanity, and this is a great topic. Okay, Dennis, well, Well, Susan, would you read what we're going to talk about today, and then let's go right to the Pope.
I'm gonna bring up what I wrote. Go ahead.
Well, we have somebody who wants to be on the show. Let me see what they want to talk about, and let me see if I can get them on the program here. Let me see if they want to talk a little bit about the Pope. Are you there? Hello?
Hello, good morning, my friend. Yes,
I think
good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good stuff. Good stuff about the home.
so good to hear you.
Yeah, I had a very good opportunity to read, the stuff he found out that he wrote. And one of the things that we wanted to mention very briefly is true, the world is in a situation where it has not been before. Of course, some people argue that we have had those wars and fighting HBU and other places. That's true, and of course, even what is happening in Africa. But a moral voice like a Pope coming out and calling not only Catholics, but all religious leaders out there. It appears to me that really this radio, what you're doing, and kind of adding to our voice, what Pope mentioned, it appears to me really a common plan of action is needed. A common plan of action, I mean, people from different religious backgrounds. It is painful how a common plan of action can really work out so that around what people say, and I can see that you are ready promoting this very, very, very good work to the board. That's what the other leadership is. So I really congratulate you and thank you for bringing up this occasion.
Well, the other thing is the Pope said himself that we need to come together as a species. He says that right smack dab in his thing there. We got to come together. All religions have to come together. And Religion Without Borders has been saying this for quite some time. And we've been saying this on Bridges programming. We have to stop killing one another. We have to stop using our natural resources and killing and poisoning the air, water, and soil. And that's exactly what the Pope said. He even used those words. And we have to start controlling the economic system, not the economic system controlling us. And he used those exact words. So, I mean, of course, he went on and on for, I think, 50 or 100 pages. But everything he's saying is what we've been talking about for several years now, trying to get this simple measurement out. And the plan of action that you are talking about is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a measure in the vocabulary, just like gravity was. All of a sudden, there was obvious things we needed to get done. They were obvious things. And when we needed to get the obvious things done, just 400 years ago, which is no time at all, somebody named this, and then they measured it. And we think that the Pope is right on target. Everybody knows every human being has to have their basic needs met, but now we can measure those needs in science. It's not subjective. It's not, I'll pay you so much an hour to stay alive, because that's not going to work. You know what you need to stay alive in science. You need a certain amount of energy units to stay alive, and you need a certain amount of energy units for water, and you need a certain amount of energy units for your shelter, and you're going to live only 80 years of age. These are measurements that we all know. They can't be changed. They're not subjective. They are objective measurements. And once we agree upon that, we can then say that's the way we're going to figure it, just like we decided when we feel as though the sun comes up, which doesn't really come up, but we agree that the sun looks like it comes up, we call that a day, and that's what we agree upon. And a matter of fact, Buckminster Fuller, which was an architect who designed the geodesic dome, he was a humanitarian. He said you've got to base humanity, economic systems, on kilowatt hours or energy units. And he said that probably 100 years ago. Someone else said something 100 years before that. But the Pope now, who's got one of the biggest bully pulpits we've ever seen in history because of social media, he is now saying the same thing. We need to make sure all humanity has their basic needs met. We have to stop poisoning the air, the water, and the soil. He's saying these things, and we have to stop killing one another. And he's saying the current economic system is not working. And this is not a political statement, even though they're trying to say it is. It's not a political statement, it's a humanitarian statement. And the proponents who want this economic system to keep going forward are bad-mouthing the Pope, saying he should be out of the political game. They don't want to listen to him. Well, this. Go ahead.
About economics, we're talking, I should say, about humanity, about the commonality between humans, the commonality that we even extended to the commonality that we have with all living creatures on this earth. And he took his name Francis from Francis of Assisi, who was able to empathize with every living thing on earth and felt that there was communication possible. I mean, this is amazing that he's seeing the interconnectedness of Pope Francis. And, yes, we're all carbon-based living entities. Yes, that's what we have in common, even on a broader sense than just if you're considering the human species, where we certainly can survive without the shelter and education. But I'm just very impressed. And I'm glad that Aminadab has joined us this morning too. And I think that, well, if you want, I'll read the summary for this program. We did start on Friday of last week with reading from Pope Francis' Encyclical, but we got up to about the 30th paragraph, and it's just stunningly interesting and inspired. But here's what I wrote today to kind of introduce what we're going to talk about. Let's see. We will continue to read from and comment on Pope Francis' Encyclical. Please find the time to read it yourself and form your own opinion. The soundbites and quotes that are going about on radio, internet, and newspapers simply don't do him justice. This is a profound, sincerely felt, and inspired piece written by an intelligent, well-informed, and deeply religious person. How often does this happen? Probably more than we think, so we never hear about it. In this case, we have the opportunity to read every word.
Well, anyway, so what we're going to do is we're not going to take our quarter break today. We're going to go right through till a halfway break, and then we're going to play We the People for you for a little 5-minute break, and then we're going to continue on reading from the Pope stuff because it's really worthwhile. We'll try to get as much of it in as we can. The work he put into this is, in my opinion, one of the best writings you could see to help humanity ever written by somebody who has a soapbox. And if we can just go, so I'm going to go ahead and let Susan go ahead with that. We will go on with this, and if you want to comment on the chat room Bridge to Humanity is open. The call-in number, if you want to call in, and if we get an opening, I will be more than happy to put you on. The phone number is 347-215-6731. We're also on Hangouts. Call. What is that? Hangouts. Google Hangouts live or something. Hangouts on air. Hangouts on air. So we're on that, and you can see the cards we have set up there for your contact information, and like that. So please don't hesitate to listen to what's the readings of the Pope, and we've always asked the Pope to join us on these programs, and somehow by the miracle of the miracle of electronics, he has, and we're going to be reading his statement here, just like he was here, excepting that this is the miracle of electronics and the visual and mind connections with humanity. Go ahead, Sue, you got it.
I've done a kind of review with a little bit of what we already went over in the Encyclical last Friday. He has a long introduction where he credits previous posts and quotes from them about the various topics that he then covers thoroughly himself in the body of the piece. And chapter 1 starts with the title, What is Happening to Our Common Home? And it actually, I think, and I hope I'm right, but the word college comes from the Greek, and the root of that is the word home. And he talks about ecology here. The first, he talks about one section, pollution and climate change, but I'm going to read just a reread what he said at the end of the section about our common home. The continued acceleration of changes affecting humanity and the planet is coupled today with a more intensified pace of life and work, which might be called rapidification. Although change is part of the working of complex systems, the speed with which human activity has developed contrasts with the naturally slow pace of biological evolution. Moreover, the goals of this rapid and constant change are not necessarily geared to the common good or to integral and sustainable human development. Change is something desirable, yet it becomes a source of anxiety when it causes harm to the world and to the quality of life of much of humanity. Following a period of irrational confidence in progress and human abilities, some sectors of society are now adopting a more critical approach. We see increasing sensitivity to the environment and the need to protect nature, along with a growing concern, both genuine and distressing, for what is happening to our planet. Let us review, however, cursorily, those questions which are troubling us today, and which we can no longer sweep under the carpet. Our goal is not to amass information or to satisfy curiosity, but rather to become painfully aware, to dare to turn what is happening to the world to our own personal suffering, and thus to discover what each of us can do about it. Now, we read through his section on pollution and climate change last Friday, which is excellent. And also, he spoke in a second section, chapter or section, the issue of water and the scarcity of it in certain areas, and especially he mentioned out where people are even had to buy their water, which is a right. He said a right, a human right, access to water. Loss of biodiversity is the section that we're on now, on the 38th paragraph. And I'll continue from that point. Let us mention, for example, those richly biodiverse lungs of our planet, which are the Amazon and the Congo basin, or the great aquifers and glaciers. We know how important these are for the entire Earth and for the future of humanity. The ecosystems of tropical forests possess an enormously complex biodiversity, which is almost impossible to fully appreciate. Yet, when these forests are burned down or leveled for purposes of cultivation, within the space of a few years, countless species are lost, and the areas frequently become arid wastelands. A delicate balance has to be maintained when speaking about these places, where we cannot overlook the huge global economic interest, which under the guise of protecting them, can undermine the sovereignty of individual nations. In fact, there are, quote, proposals to internationalize the Amazon, which only serve the economic interests of transnational corporations. We cannot fail to praise the commitment of international agencies and civil society organizations, which draw public attention to these issues and offer critical cooperation, employing legitimate means of pressure to ensure that each government carries out its proper and inalienable responsibility to preserve its country's environment and natural resources without capitulating to spurious local or international interests. The replacement of virgin forests with plantations of trees, usually monocultures, is rarely adequately analyzed. Yet, this can seriously compromise a biodiversity which the new species being introduced does not accommodate. Similarly, wetlands converted into cultivated land lose the enormous biodiversity which they formerly hosted. In some coastal areas, the disappearance of ecosystems sustained by mangrove swamps is a source of serious concern. Oceans do not only contain the bulk of our planet's water supply, but also most of the immense variety of living creatures. Many of them feel unknown to us and threatened for various reasons. What is more, marine life in rivers, lakes, oceans, which feeds a great part of the world population, is affected by uncontrolled fishing, leading to a drastic depletion of certain species. Selective forms of fishing, which discard much of what they collect, continue unabated. Particularly threatened are marine organisms which we tend to overlook, like some forms of plankton. They represent a significant element in the ocean food chain, and species used for our food ultimately depend on them. In tropical and subtropical seas, we find coral reefs comparable to the great forests on dry land, where they shelter approximately 1 million species, including fish, crabs, mollusks, sponges, and algae. Many of the world's coral reefs are already barren or in a state of constant decline. Quote, who turned the wonder world of the sea into underwater cemeteries bereft of color and life? Unquote. And these things are then credited in a thing at the end, whatever they call that, content, table of contents or whatever. This phenomenon is due largely to pollution, which reaches the sea as a result of deforestation, agricultural monocultures, industrial waste, and destructive fishing methods, especially those using cyanide and dynamite. It is aggravated by the rise in temperature of the ocean. All of this helps us to see that every intervention in nature can have consequences which are not immediately evident, and that certain ways of exploiting resources prove costly in terms of degradation. which ultimately reaches the ocean bed itself. Greater investment needs to be made in research aimed at understanding more fully the functioning of ecosystems and adequately analyzing the different variables associated with any significant modification of the environment. Because all creatures are connected, each must be cherished with love and respect. All of us as living creatures are dependent on one another. Each area is responsible for the care of its family. This will require undertaking a careful inventory of the species, which includes the review to developing programs and strategies for protection, with particular care for safeguarding species and guarding extinction. That one section. Before we enter another section, comment on that if you want, or I can keep going.
Oh, can I make a comment?
Certainly.
I would like to, and also as a comment, I'm leaving, and then after Dennis makes his comment, then a minute to make his comment. Is that okay?
Certainly.
This is a real quick comment where you mentioned about the island, about the oceans are rising, and we know for a fact the oceans are rising because climate change, global warming is melting a lot of ice and snow way up in the North Pole and down in the South Pole. So much of that ice and snow is melting. Oceans are rising, and nobody can say that's wrong because islands are disappearing. People who have been living on an island all their life have to get off of that island because the oceans are rising, the islands are going underwater. So it really is true. Okay, a minute.
I just want to let you know that you're listening to the Pope's writings. This is not our commentary. The Pope himself is talking about science. He's talking about what's really happening in this world. He's talking about the economy, and Susan is reading directly from the Pope's writing. This is not a dead Pope or someone who wrote this 100 years ago. This is someone right today alive with the largest bully pulpit in the world. Go ahead. I just want a minute, Abby. Please comment on that.
Well, my last comment, because I'll be going in a few seconds. My last comment is that those are really very inspiring by writings and coming from a pope. My comment is that we all know, and even those who are listening now, that we know that the moral voices have been there 1,000 years, long time ago, and throughout the century. But today, what we see, as Dennis pointed out, now things are within our eyes. We can see the danger. We can see the problems, we can see the challenges. Not only that, now we have a way through ways of they can communicate and really understand what is going on. It's not a secret anymore. But the question again, I wanted to point out, as I earlier suggested, it appears essentially that really a common plan of action is needed for different leaders' background, and those who truly believe and see the world as pointed out. I mean, whether we have the common plan of action, like what the government agency were trying to do, and work all together through, I really don't see how we will survive. Probably our generation will, when we don't know our children, children.
Well, the thing is the common plan. See, the trouble with a common plan of action, and I'm agreeing with you, we need a common plan of action. And the common plan of action is very simple. This whole system is deteriorating because of, and Pope Francis brought this out in the beginning of his thing, that we have a dysfunctional economic system, is what he said. This is not my words. I've been saying that for years, but he said that we have a dysfunctional economic system, and the reason why it's dysfunctional is because it doesn't have any way of measuring humanity. So the plan of action that you're suggesting is what we say, that if we can measure what's wrong with the economic system, where it doesn't take into effect humanity, as far as to help humanity instead of helping just a few people. Once we measure this, so we know where we are, and we now could, for the first time in history, we can now measure it, that we all are equal. Just like the Bible said in the very beginning, we all use the same amount of energy to eat and drink and live. And we all live about 80 years of age, more or less. So we have those two factors, energy figures and time, to figure in. Once we put the measurement into the vocabulary, which we're calling the HREM.org, the HREM, Human Renewable Energy Measure, or HERM, it doesn't matter how you say it, but it's a basic measurement that all human beings, no matter where they are in the world, have to have their basic needs met. And once we do that, the rest of it will follow through. And you can't figure it in basic needs, in the basic needs measured in economic terms as far as currency. Currency is manipulated, but you can figure it in the form of energy units, which can never be manipulated because it's part of nature. So therefore, we say that we have an answer for this and a way of putting it into effect. And the way the plan of action which you are suggesting, we agree with. But the only way to get from where we are now to where we want to be is we have to first figure out where we are now. And we can get there with a basic measurement. Just like a GPS. Before we had GPSs, we would triangulate. Before that, we would check with the stars to celestial navigation. I'm saying to you, we now can know where we are because we know the age of the human being, basically, and we know the amount of energy units they need for food and water and shelter. We take those energy. So I'm saying to you, we do have that. Go ahead.
I know he pointed out about people seeing statements made as a political statement. For sure, that's not a political statement. What you are referring to we made so that all the calamities that are in our state we see and how we are destroying our world. I'm thinking that this is a common plan of action really defining not only Jeff and Susan trying to bring this about, but also making sure those who are listening to us, Catholic, Protestant, you name it.
Well, that's exactly. That's exactly what the Pope said. Everybody should be, every religion should come together on this. He said that in the very beginning of his statement.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was referring from the Pope's plan of action. They need to come together. Now we know, now we see. It's not like 100 years ago where things will happen in one of the corners of the world and no one will notice it. But now we know this is a reality. We know we are heading to a terrible again for our children and children. Things cannot go anymore. I mean, we know how to really come together and try to have a common plan of action to solve this problem.
I agree. A matter of fact, what I'm trying to say on this is that if I used to ask the reverends and the preachers to please do a Herman, a human renewable energy measure, or Herman, HERM, and instead of a sermon every month, every week. Start like once a month, do a Herman, not a sermon, and get together so humanity make sure they don't kill one another anywhere in the world, they don't hurt other species, and they don't poison the air, the water, and the soil. That's keeping us alive. And we have to respect that. And nature or God is definitely telling us that. Or it's a dictatorship in a form that says you've got a brain, use it. And I think that we're finally, I think with this Pope's statement, I have, in this case, I have faith, because when I see the Pope with a bully pulpit like this speaking up, and you're watching them, the other proponents backtrack and badmouth the Pope because he should keep his mouth shut and just stick with religion, not politics. This is not a political statement he's making. It's a religious statement he's making, and it's also a humanitarian statement. So religion is nothing more than humanitarianism. Doesn't matter which religion you are, or what color you are, or what nationality you are. We're all human beings, brothers, under the same planet. We have to stop killing one another. We have to respect one another's time that they have on the planet. We have to make sure they have their basic needs met, no matter where they are. And that's exactly what we're saying. It's so simple. It's not a complicated thing. But the minute you get people who say, what's it going to cost us to do that? You just made it very complicated, because there is no cost for respect and to help human beings in harmony, not in competition. I don't know if I made that clear enough.
I think you made it clear. Okay, do we want to go on with the Pope, or?
Yeah, continue on with I want to get as much of his comments out there as possible. I think it's really, I think every single church in the country should read a section of the Pope's stuff, and they should do it in because this was great stuff, and every church on Sunday should at least talk about this every single Sunday until we continue. And the movement Amenadab's talking about is every church should talk about helping humanity around the world stop killing one another, get an economic system that's basically make sure all human needs are met, put a measurement on so we can measure it, so we can get there. And I think you're right, Amenadab. We need to get a movement started, and the Pope is spearheading the movement as far as I can see, and it's up to us as individuals to take it forward. And every pastor out there has an obligation to his community to make sure that their community understands we must stop killing one another. All human needs must be met through our economic system worldwide, not just in the U.S., but worldwide. And no human being, no matter where they are in the world, should ever have to beg for food, water, or shelter. And they should have that done within a minimal amount of work time. That's not unreasonable to ask for.
No, and you're right. It can resonate with all of these women's outlets everywhere. And we know that they're very numerous. You can't go into any small town in the United States and not easily find at least 5 churches. Maybe more. Often very many more. And most of them are Christian based. And it doesn't. And he's on the same list because the Pope isn't, a Catholic, I vote in Christianity, but he's saying we got to open this up to everyone, even if you're, like me, an agnostic. Everyone has to participate, and this is everyone's business, it's everyone's humanity, it's everyone's first. And we don't own it. Data point early on in this biblical that nobody owns life on earth, there's a gift, and we're
life on this planet, so that it will continue. And it is a miracle. We understand, a certain amount about, when we're damaging it, and he's talking about all the ways that we're damaging it. We know when we're doing that. We have to stop doing it. And we have to figure out how we can live in harmony with the rest of the living creatures or other humans. It's time, it's way past due. And as Lynn was saying, we have now the ability to communicate directly, quickly. This Encyclical just came out, I think, last month. And now it can be dispersed. It can be dispersed to all the churches, through the internet. This is a good, solid summary of what's going on. Well-informed person. He has access to all the most current knowledge if you want it, and obviously he did, because he's speaking very, very intelligently to all these issues that he's taken on in his encyclical. So, I mean, it's a directive. That's what an encyclical is. But he's directing everyone to consider what he's written here and disperse it. Okay, here we go. Always.
Yes, quickly. But before you read on, later in the show, I can read some news from today's paper. Just came in today's news. It says, reform-minded Pope lifts liberals. It's an interesting article from the Washington Post. And I just wanted to ask, before Susan continues reading, Amanda, is it possible over in Africa, weren't there even children?
Dennis, I have to, Aminadab had to leave. I want to thank him for being on the program. He left already. So he's no longer with us. He had to get to a church meeting, so he was on his way. Thank you, Aminadab, though. When you hear the program on the back, you'll hear the program on the replay. I want to thank you for being on the show. Well, I hate to call it a show. It's a program. This is not a show. We're on Google Hangouts. We're on Hangouts on Air. We're on Skype. We're on Blog Talk. We're on Bridges Programming website, and we're on all the different audio stuff as we can get out there. We want to try to bring people together, bring humanity together, and unfortunately, Dennis, when you're saying the Pope raised liberals up, that's a shame, because
They're trying to do
their usual stuff, right? They're trying to separate liberals from conservatives, and that's not the point. And they're doing damage by saying this is a liberal comment. They just divided humanity. This is not a liberal or conservative problem. This is a humanitarian problem. And when they say the conservatives or the liberals, the minute you divide the world up like that, that's how you conquer it. You divide and conquer. And that's exactly what's wrong with our economic system. The economic system divides us up. Jews, Christians, hate and love. They put all and if you notice correctly, what's going on right now, and it happens every single time you have an election in this country, all of a sudden they march out the abortion issues. They march out the gay issues. They march out all these subjective issues, and that divides us up even more to keep the people in office. And they think that it's going to matter whether it's liberal or conservative. It doesn't, because it's going to control the people running for office are controlled by money. And unless we come together as a people, it's not a conservative versus liberal. It's not a religious issue. It's a humanitarian issue. The Pope isn't being political. He's being a humanitarian, and we've got to stop letting the media divide us up, the mainstream media. I'd love you to read that article after the next break, Dennis. But I want to keep in mind that they're trying to divide us up, and I don't know in this case whether the liberal press is helping with that. It is not the way to do this. Fox News is trying to say the Pope is wrong. Then the liberals are trying to say the Pope is right. No, we must start saying we need to come together and we need to reform this dysfunctional economic system. It's a dysfunctional economic system. And in that dysfunctional economic system is running our political system. So it's dysfunctional for the world, humanity. It's killing people. And that's what the Pope is saying. The system, the economic system is dysfunctional. And when you say that, that makes more sense than saying we have a dysfunctional government. This is a dysfunctional economic system, and the Pope recognizes that. He recognizes that there's a certain amount of science that is really on target. And the reason why he recognizes that, he believes in certain religious things. And the religious things allow humanity to use their mind. And that's what we have. It's so important. Okay, go ahead.
Right, Dennis was saying just a minute ago, though, Dennis was saying that I believe you're right when you said about dysfunctional, but that even is able to buy and pay for functional government as well. So that both to be true.
Okay, well,
I will hold you up to this.
no,
You're right.
you're holding up the post.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
This is section 4, and the Pope Francis entitled it Decline in Decline in the Quality of Human Life and the Breakdown of Society. Okay, now, and this is paragraph 43. Human beings, too, are creatures of this world, enjoying a right to life and happiness, and endowed with unique dignity. So we cannot fail to consider the effects on people's lives of environmental deterioration, current models of development, and the throwaway culture. Nowadays, for example, we are conscious of the disproportionate and unruly growth of many cities which have become unhealthy to live in, not only because of pollution caused by toxic emissions, but also as a result of urban chaos, poor transportation, and visual pollution and noise. Many cities are huge, inefficient structures, excessively wasteful of energy and water. Neighborhoods, even those recently built, are congested, chaotic, and lacking sufficient green space. We were not meant to be inundated by cement, asphalt, glass, and metal, and deprived of physical contact with nature. In some places, rural and urban alike, the privatization of certain spaces has restricted people's access to places of particular beauty. In others, ecological neighborhoods have been created, which are closed to outsiders in order to ensure an artificial tranquility. Frequently, we find beautiful and carefully manicured green spaces in so-called safer areas, but not in the more hidden areas where the disposable of society lives. The social dimensions of global change include the effects of technological innovations on employment, social exclusion, and inequitable distribution and consumption of energy and other services, social breakdown, increased violence, and a rise in new forms of social aggression, drug trafficking, growing drug use by young people, and the loss of identity. These are signs that the growth of the past 2 centuries has not always led to an integral development and an improvement in the quality of life. Some of these signs are also symptomatic of real social decline, the silent rupture of the bonds of integration and social cohesion. Furthermore, when media and the digital world become omnipresent, their influence can stop people from learning how to live wisely, to think deeply, and to love generously. In this context, the great stages of the past run the risk of going unheard amid the noise and distractions of an information overload. Effort needs to be made to help these media become sources of new cultural progress for humanity and not a threat to our deepest riches. True wisdom as the fruit of self-examination, dialogue, and generous encounter between persons is not acquired by a mere accumulation of data, which eventually leads to overload and confusion, a sort of mental solution. Real relationships with others, with all the challenges they entail, now tend to be replaced by a type of internet communication which enables us to choose or eliminate relationships at whim, thus giving rise to a new type of contrived emotion, which is more to do with devices and displays than with other people and with nature. Today's media do enable us to communicate and to share our knowledge and affection. Yet at times, they also shield us from direct contact with the pain, fears, and the joys of others and the complexities of their personal experiences. For this reason, we should be concerned that alongside the exciting possibilities offered by these media, a deep and melancholic dissatisfaction with the interpersonal relations or in consequent isolation can also arise. That's the end of section 4. Section 5 is entitled Global Inequality. Global Inequality. The human environment and the natural environment deteriorate together. That's right. Let's have a moment for some applause right there. We cannot adequately combat environmental degradation unless we attend to causes related to human and social degradation. In fact, the deterioration of the environment and of society affects the most vulnerable people on the planet. So both everyday experience and the scientific research show that the greatest effects of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. For example, the depletion of fishing reserves especially hurts small fishing communities without the means to replace those resources. Water pollution particularly affects the poor who cannot buy bottled water, and rises in the sea level mainly affect impoverished coastal populations that have nowhere else to go. The impact of present imbalances is also seen in the premature death of many of the poor in conflicts sparked by the shortage of resources and any number of other problems which are insufficiently represented on global agendas. It needs to be said that generally speaking, there is little in the way of clear awareness of problems which especially affect the excluded. Yes, they are the majority of the planet's population. Billions of people. And I gotta think that he's speaking, but and another issue of this, I don't know if we get into it, in the next couple of sentences, but this main population is a farming population for the most part. Subsistence or, slightly more than subsistence type farming. And most people don't realize that. It's the case, even today. I think everybody got access to the internet, electricity, and all that. Not true. These back to a program. These days there are mentions in international political and economic discussions, but one often has the impression that their problems are brought up as an afterthought, a question which gets at it almost out of duty or in a tangential way, if not treated merely as collateral damage. Indeed, when all is said and done, they frequently remain at the bottom of the pile. This is due partly to the fact that many professionals, opinion makers, communications, media, and centers of power, being located in affluent urban areas, are far removed from the poor, with little direct contact with their problems. They live and reason from the comfortable position of a high level of development and a quality of life beyond the reach of the majority of the world population. This lack of physical contact and encounter encouraged at times by the disintegration of our cities can lead to a numbing of conscience and to tendentious analysis which neglects parts of reality. At times, this attitude exists side by side with a quote green rhetoric. Today, however, we have to realize that a true ecological approach always becomes a social approach. It must integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment so as to both hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Instead of resolving the problems of the poor and thinking how the world can be different, some can only propose a reduction in the birth rate. At times, developing countries face forms of international pressure which make economic assistance contingent on certain policies of, quote, reproductive health. Yes, quote, while it is true that an unequal distribution of the population and of available resources creates obstacles to development and a sustainable use of the environment, it must nonetheless be recognized that demographic growth is wholly compatible with an integral and shared development, unquote. To blame population growth instead of extreme and selective consumerism on the part of some is one way of refusing to face the issue. It is an attempt to legitimize the present model of distribution, where a minority believes that it has the right to consume in a way which can never be universalized, since the planet could not even contain the waste products of such consumption. Besides, we know that approximately a third of all food produced is discarded, and, quote, whenever food is thrown out, it is as if it were stolen from the tables of the poor, unquote. Still, attention needs to be paid to imbalances in the population density on both national and global levels, since a rise in consumption would lead to complex regional situations as a result of the interplay between problems linked to environmental pollution, transport, waste treatment, loss of resources, and quality of life. Inequity affects not only individuals, but entire countries. It compels us to consider an ethics of international relations. An ethics of international relations. I have to repeat that. A true, quote, ecological debt exists, particularly between the global north and south, connected to commercial imbalances with effects on the environment and the disproportionate use of natural resources by certain countries over long periods of time. The export of raw materials to satisfy markets in the industrialized north has caused harm locally, as for example in mercury pollution in gold mining or sulfur dioxide pollution in copper mining. There is a pressing need to calculate the use of environmental space throughout the world for depositing
depositing gas residues, which have been accumulated for 2 centuries, and have created a situation which currently affects all the countries of the world.
I want to interrupt this for a minute because two things. He said there's a way of calculating these things, and he's right on target. I just want to take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, Dennis can read that article that they're trying to divide us with again with this, and then we'll go back to exactly because he's hitting home on so many things that's going to take a lot of reading and a lot of understanding to what he's saying. He's hitting tremendous hard factual points. So we'll take a little break. We'll be back in 5 minutes, and Dennis can read his thing from the way they're trying to divide us with this stuff. We'll be right back. Oh, Dennis, you'll be there? Okay, we'll be back 5 minutes.
We the people have been mind. We the people understand.
That's amazing. That's amazing what he can come up. It is amazing. It's just unbelievable. And then and Dennis picked up today's paper. Look at the conservative, they're doing it immediately. And oh, by the way, Aaron called. He texted. Someone's looking in my mail, and I reported it to the postmaster and the cops. And I'm going to put a webcam. I'm going to ask the farmer to put a webcam across the street. So I emailed him back. Good. and then Zazel called. I didn't answer the call to just a message. This is what Lee was saying about him. He was saying that Lee was saying someone was joining into her post box. In the beginning of this winter, if you remember it. Yeah. And I said, "What can I tell you? We're going to put a webcam in the box." I said, "Do whatever you got to do." And then
they're both doing the same thing. Well, they imitate each other. Because what's his name?
I didn't listen to the message. That's you can't. Well, I have to go over to the line to get I'm doing a whole show instead of with any of the microphones. I'm doing it strictly with the telephone.
Yeah, I know it works very good. And the quality is the same.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff. We won't get through it all today. We'll do the rest of it. Maybe Wednesday program, right?
Yeah. It's amazing to hear someone with that pulpit.
Yeah.
And then no one's saying anything about it. I mean, if Dennis wants to keep on quoting, what's his name, the Popius or whatever his name is, the great Constitution, but it's going to be over soon. Okay. This is the guy he should be quoting every day. And Dennis can't get over the fact that it's not a dysfunctional government; it's a dysfunctional economic system.
Right. That's another. Yeah, Washington Post hasn't been a liberal paper for a long time, but I don't know what it is anymore.
No, it's like all of it's been co-opted by big money.
The original owner sold it.
Okay.
the people hand in hand. We the people understand.
I'm on the live.
We the people have to play. Something in order to protect. And we the people to declare. And the truth is not the word. We the people will be heard. We the people. We the people. We the people everywhere.
Hi, we are back. This is Bridges Programming. This is Sunday on the Front Stoop. We are here with Dennis Carrier, Susan Comont, and myself. I'm Jeff Beller. You can call in if you choose to at 347-215-6731. We're on Hangouts on Air, and we will be broadcasting this program throughout forever, as long as we can keep affording the way we're doing it. And we're talking about Sunday on the Front Stoop. We have a chat room open called Bridge to Humanity. This is about Pope Francis, and Susan's reading it. But before we go back to Susan's voice, reading what the Pope is saying, Dennis is going to read what a theoretical newspaper is saying about the Pope. And they're trying to divide us. Now, if you listen to this piece of news, Fox and liberal papers the conservative and Republican and liberal papers try to divide us up between conservative. This is a humanitarian issue. It has nothing to do with liberal or conservative. It's humanitarian, and it's not political. But go ahead, Dennis, read your article that you saw in the Post today. And I don't believe the Post is any more liberal than the Fox News. I think they're all bought and paid for by the same people who want to control the economy. But go ahead. That's my opinion.
That's a really good question, Jeff, because I think you and I agree there is something called climate change out there, correct?
The thing is, whether we agree upon that or not, I'm just curious. The Pope is agreeing with the scientists. And he's saying, basically the Pope is saying that we have a God-given brain, and we have to use that brain so we don't keep on hurting humanity, and there's something wrong with the economic system, and the economic system is creating climate change because of our economics. That's what the Pope is saying. So whether you and I agree with it or not, that the scientist is saying that it's a climate problem focused because of human behavior, and the human behavior is directly related to the economic system, and that's what the Pope is saying. But I'm curious to see the way the mainstream media, which in this case is the Post, is trying to divide us up. So read that article you mentioned.
And this is an article by Anthony Viola and Chris Mooney of the Washington Post. It's entitled "Reform-Minded Pope Lifts Liberals." And believe me, I know what you're saying, Jeff. That whether we're talking liberals or conservatives, it shouldn't matter. This should not be, like anything to do with politics. This is about saving what I call saving our planet.
No, it's not to save the planet. It's to save humanity. The planet is going to be here no matter what. That is not having to do anything with the planet. It's humanity which is going to be gone. The planet will be here. Don't try to make it bigger than it is. We are a species that are on our last shot. Most of humanity is gone already. All the different species of humanity has been extinct. They're gone. We're the last species left. And we will be gone too. But the planet is always going to be here as far as eons go on. It's not the planet that we're trying to save. We're trying to save humanity and other species. That's what we're trying to save. Let's not convolute it with we want to be benevolent and save the planet. God or nature is going to keep this planet here forever. Don't worry about the planet. Worry about our species. I just don't really want to be benevolent and say, well, we're doing this because we're going to make ourselves, we're going to make ourselves look good. No, we're going to die, man. We're going to kill people and we're going to kill the planet. But we're not going to kill the planet. We're going to kill our species.
Well, I'm just talking about a planet that allows us to stay here and to survive on this planet. It's the same thing as if I said, Jeff and Susan live in this home, and we have to save that home. And if Jeff says, no, you don't have to save that home. It can be destroyed.
No, the home is going to be here well after I'm long dead and buried. The home will be here after Jeff and Susan and Dennis die. Your building will most probably still be there, and my home will still be here. My grandfather said that about our brick home. I said, look, Pap, the brick's got a crack in it. He said, this brick building will be here long after I'm dead, long after you're dead, and your grandchildren are dead. And he's right. That brick building still stands, and a part of the Rockaways that is still up and, it's still steady as a rock. The building will be here. The planet will be here. We as a species may not.
Okay, I'll start reading then. I think this is interesting. Pope Francis was about to take a major step backing the science behind human-driven global warming. And Felipe de Larminta was determined to change his mind. A French doubter who authored a book arguing that solar activity, not greenhouse gases, was driving global warming. De Larminta sought a spot at a climate summit in April, sponsored by the Vatican's Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Nobel laureates would be there. So would UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, U.S. economist Jeffrey Sachs, and others calling for dramatic steps to curb carbon emissions. After securing a high-level meeting at the Vatican, he was told that, space permitting, he could join. He bought a flight ticket from Paris to Rome, but 5 days before the April 28th summit, de Larminta said he received an email saying there was no space left.
No space. No space left for whom? The Pope?
I believe that, yes, it means there was no space left for the Pope.
They wouldn't let the Pope speak at this meeting?
I know, but can you believe that? I mean, to say, oh, we have thousands of chairs, but there's not one space left for the Pope.
No, wouldn't you knock out a couple of speakers to allow the Pope to speak? This is a little crazy. Go ahead.
Yes, I agree with you. Okay, here it is. I'll continue. It came after other scientists, the powerful Vatican bureaucrat in charge of the Academy itself, insisted he had no business being there. Quote, they did not want to hear an off note, end quote, de Larminta said. The incident highlights how climate change deniers tried and failed to alter the landmark papal document unveiled last week, one that saw the leader of 1 billion Catholics fuse faith in reason and come to the conclusion that denial is wrong. It marked the latest blow for those seeking to stop the reform-minded train that has become his papacy. It is one that has reinvigorated liberal Catholics, even as it has sowed the seeds of resentment and dissent itself and outside the Vatican's ancient walls. Yet the battle lost over climate change also suggests
how hard it may be for critics to blunt the power of a man who has become something of a juggernaut in an institution where change tends to unfold over decades.
What is a Zubinaut?
I think you guys may have misinterpreted what this is saying. There was a statement coming out from the Pope within his Vatican science community, whatever they named it earlier. And this guy who wanted to criticize what the Pope was saying, who lived in Paris, wanted to get in there and make his statement. They didn't allow him to come in.
Oh, okay. Okay, I know that. So
I think that they have every right, not to have, somebody mouth off, when they're trying to make, their point. It's not a debate. It's a statement that he's making.
Right. You're not going to debate what the Pope has come up with. He's theoretically the leader of the Christian, of the Catholic world, or the Christian world. So therefore, there's no debate here. This is what he's come to a conclusion on, and I think the guy has come, in my opinion, as not a Christian, as a non-Christian. I think he's come to he's right on target. Now the problem here, Dennis, is they're debating climate change, and they're debating the Pope's concept of climate change. I'm saying to you that it's not about climate change, it's about the economic system. And if you fix the economic system, the climate change problem will slowly disappear. And so will the dysfunctional governments we have. It'll become a functional economic system because we need to measure it. And the Pope is saying the same thing. He started off with the economic system, and then he brought it into climate change. So they want to debate the climate change. No one's talking about the economics, even though that's the most important thing we can deal with. The reason why we have the problem with the climate is because the economic problem is killing people and poisoning the atmosphere and poisoning the water and the soil. And the Pope discussed this in the early part of his statement, but no one's picked up on this in the mainstream media. They want to debate something that they feel as though they can get scientists involved with. And that's not the problem here, but that's how they're dividing us up. Go ahead. Keep on. Go ahead, Dennis, with your article.
And I also want to just mention, there's a group out there called Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Albany, all these areas occupied, and they say it's no longer the left versus the right. They're saying that there's 99% of us, and Jeff, Susan, and I agree, we could be saved by the HREM and, all of this, but there's also the upper 1%, less than that, the richest, the most powerful. And Dennis thinks that this problem also has something to do with greed, G-R-E-E-D.
But when you mention the word greed, you're going back to an emotional word. It's subjective, and I really try to keep the subject. In other words, I went to the dump this morning, and the fellow said to me, "Well, it's greed." I said, "You guys have a job that you're making $50,000 a year compared to someone working in Burger King who's only making maybe $5,000 or $10,000 a year. Aren't you more greedy than them?" They said, "Well, they can get my job." I said, "No, they can't. So you're being more greedy than them." And then I make a little more than that person makes. So am I more greedy than them? And then there's someone else making more than someone else is. So are they more greedy than them? Greed is a subjective term. And I said to them, when I woke up this morning, I brushed my teeth, I looked in the mirror, and I said, I'm an old man who's going to kill 2 people today because of my lifestyle. And so are you guys. And the guy in the dump said, I'm not killing anybody. I said, you certainly are. You're driving a brand new truck. You're going to buy the cheapest possible thing you can from Walmart. You're going to buy the cheapest stuff you can get. And therefore, you are killing people in your lifestyle. But you refuse to look in the mirror. So the problem here is greed. The word greed is subjective. It is not objective. You can't measure it. So therefore, I don't like to put greed into the conversation because it's an emotional term. It means like I feel like I don't like that person, or I don't like the color blue, or I don't like the color green. It's subjective. It has no real value other than your feeling. So that's why I object to the, I personally object to the word greed. It rubs me as an individual who believes in science the wrong way. My likes and dislikes are my subjective term, just like the way I dislike the word greed. It has no value other than an emotional term, because you and I are more greedy than the person living in Africa right now, because we have more and we're hurting other people. So you and I are just as greedy as Warren Buffett or the Koch brothers or anybody who's making a lot of money. We are greedy, Dennis, and we have to look in the mirror and admit that if we're going to use the word greed, it's to what degree greed is, and you can't tell me that. That's why I object to the word greed. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to. I couldn't allow myself to, as part of the conversation, to say that's okay. That we'll let that go. But I'm not saying if that's your belief system that the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement is saying there's something unfair with the way the system's working. The Occupy movement says we want fairness in the world. In every Occupy group you mentioned, they want fairness. It's unfair. We played the game, we got our education, we have our job, and now they're taking it away from us. That's what they're saying. They're not saying someone's greedy. They can't say that because there's no way of measuring it. Then they can say it's not fair because they don't feel it's fairly done. But someone who's controlling the purse string says it's perfectly fair. My job is to get the cheapest labor I can wherever I can get it. And whatever damage I do in doing this, it doesn't matter because that's the way our economic system works. And that's what the Pope is saying. And that's what we're saying. I'm saying to you that once we measure it with the human renewable energy measure based on science, based on energy units, it will be fair. You'll be able to know exactly how much taxes to pay, exactly what the minimum wage should be anywhere in the world. It is then fair. But you can't measure it with an emotional thing. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's like the sky is falling. The sky is falling. You don't know that unless it actually falls. You don't until you can measure what fell. You see what I'm saying? You need to be able to say to me what is unfair, what is greed, what is the minimum wage, what is the amount of taxes I should pay. You can't tell me that without a measure.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. Because I think you and Susan do great work. Fantastic. You were never killing people. Now, you just mentioned about you killed one or two people. I mean, I know you're half joking.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not half joking. You and I and everybody that we know in the Western world, in this world right here, in our society, are killing people every single day of the week because of our buying habits within the economy. I'm not half joking. I'm saying you for a fact that because of the way we conduct our wars through our leaders, we drop drones on people. We poison water systems. We frack the ground. We are killing people every day because of our actions. And Dennis, we are part of that. We are just as greedy and just as vicious as the people we think we don't want to be like. We can't help it because the economic system we're part of this economic system. And that's why I get so frustrated with when I hear these words, occupy or greed, because we are part of that. The only way to get out of this is to measure it so we can say we can't do this anymore. In other words, if I told you, Dennis, that you must have 1,800 calories of food and water a day to live, maybe 15, maybe 2,000, either way. But if I say to you, you're only going to get 600 calories a day, you're going to die in a short amount of time. You won't live. And that's because we can measure these things. But we are killing people every day. Open your eyes and see what we're doing. Our economic system is controlling the Mideast, which you are aware of, and we put our dictators in, which you are aware of. And when we drop a drone in Syria somewhere because we're helping keep the dictators in or trying to get dictators in, a piece of glass fell down and cut a kid's arm off, and they may bleed to death. And that's why they call us infidels. They are in other people's eyes. You can see where they call us infidels, but we're not. We are human beings trapped in this economic system, which must be changed. And that's exactly what the Pope is trying to say. He's not saying it is blatant as I'm saying it. We are blatantly killing people around the world. Go ahead.
Well, here, as I read on, and these are the Pope's words in his encyclical, he is speaking directly to what you're saying there. Do you want me to read it?
Well, I want Dennis to get his article out because we said we would do that. Go ahead, finish out with that article, Dennis.
Okay.
I think we're done with the article, aren't we?
Well, I'm not finished, but let me just read a few more paragraphs here. More than anything, to those who doubt the human impact of global warming, the position staked out by Francis in his papal document, known as an encyclical, means a major defeat. Quote, "This was their Waterloo," end quote, said Kurt Davies, executive director of the Climate Investigation Center, who has been tracking climate change deniers for years. Quote, "They wanted the encyclical not to happen, and it happened," end quote.
Okay, I want to interrupt this. So I want to go back to the Pope's statement because the climate change is not the issue here. The climate change is a sidebar that brings us into a cul-de-sac to argue about. The climate change is a direct result of a poor economy that has no value for humanity. And I haven't heard the rest of the cyclical. We're gonna skip our break and go right to the next 30 some odd minutes to the program. The chat room has got a lot of people into it. If you want to join our chat room, it's Bridge to Humanity. And if you want to call in, you can call in, but we're probably not going to put you on. Susan's going to continue on until the end of the program with the cyclical from the Pope. And if he's saying what I just said is as loud as I said it, then this should be broadcast, not climate change and not, we are killing people, Dennis. You and I and everyone in the Western world is killing people with the economic system. And that's a big thing, and we got to face up to that. And then we're going to say how we stop it.
The issue of climate change, and people wanted to get to just that discussion because then they can go back and forth whether it exists or not. Well, we know what exists. We know that pollution exists. We know that poverty exists. We know that war exists. We know that people are emigrating from their homes because they can't live in their cities anymore and in their villages because of changes in the environment around them for all kinds of reasons. And a lot of them, and most of them, are powered by economics, the economics of an elite population that is living on the consumption of, as the Pope is saying.
They're leeches living on the back of the poor. And they're literally sucking the planet dry. They're literally sucking the planet dry. They're literally poisoning the water, earth, and air. And they want to get into a cul-de-sac to argue. So I'm suggesting that let's continue on with the Pope's readings.
Let's not let this incredible document that Pope Francis wrote, let's not let it be parsed into cul-de-sac type arguments. That's not what this is about.
Right.
He goes on to say here, the warming caused by huge consumption on the part of some rich countries has repercussions on the poorest areas of the world, especially Africa, where a rise in temperature together with drought has proved devastating for farming. There is also the damage caused by the export of solid waste and toxic liquids to developing countries, and by the pollution produced by companies which operate in less developed countries in ways they could never do at home. In these countries in which they raise their capital, quote, we note that often the businesses which operate this way are multinational. They do here what they would never do in developed countries or the so-called first world. Generally, after ceasing their activity and withdrawing, they leave behind great human and environmental liabilities, such as unemployment, abandoned towns, the depletion of natural reserves, deforestation, the impoverishment of agriculture and livestock breeding, open pits, riven hills, polluted rivers, and a handful of social works which are no longer sustainable, unquote. The foreign debt of poor countries has become a way of controlling them. Yet this is not the case where ecological debt is concerned. In different ways, developing countries where the most important reserves of the biosphere are found continue to fuel the development of richer countries at the cost of their own present and future. The land of the southern is rich and mostly unpolluted. Yet, access to ownership of goods and resources for meeting vital needs is inhibited by a system of regulations and ownership which is structurally perverse. The developed countries ought to help pay this debt by significantly limiting their consumption of non-renewable energy and by assisting poorer countries to support policies and programs of sustainable development. The poorest areas and countries are less capable of adopting new models for reducing environmental impact because they lack the wherewithal to develop the necessary processes and recover their costs. We must continue to be aware that regarding climate change, there are differentiated responsibilities. As the United States bishops have said, greater attention must be given to the, quote, needs of the poor, the weak, the vulnerable in a debate often dominated by more powerful interests, unquote. We need to strengthen the conviction that we are one single human family. There are no frontiers or barriers, political or social, behind which we can hide. Still less is there room for the globalization of indifference. Okay, section number 6. Weak responses. These situations have caused Sister Earth, along with all the abandoned of our world, to cry out, pleading that we take another course. Never have we so hurt and mistreated our common home as we have in the last 200 years. Yet we are called to be instruments of God our Father so that our planet might be what He desired when He created it and correspond with His plan for peace, beauty, and fullness. The problem is that we still lack the culture needed to confront this crisis. We lack leadership capable of striking out on new paths and meeting the needs of the present with concern for all and with prejudice towards coming generations. The establishment of a legal framework which can set clear boundaries and ensure the protection of ecosystems has become indispensable. Otherwise, the power structures based on the techno-economic paradigm may overwhelm not only our politics, but also freedom and justice. It is remarkable how weak international political responses have been. The failure of global summits on the environment make it plain that our politics are subject to technology and finance. There are too many special interests, and economic interests easily end up trumping the common good and manipulating information so that their own plans will not be affected.
foods which irrationally demolish sources of life should not prevail in dealing with natural resources, unquote. The alliance between the economy and technology ends up sidelining anything unrelated to its immediate interests. Consequently, the most one can expect is superficial rhetoric, sporadic acts of philanthropy, and perfunctory expressions of concern for the environment, whereas any genuine attempt by groups within society to introduce change is viewed as a nuisance based on romantic illusions or an obstacle to be circumvented. Some countries are gradually making significant progress, developing more effective controls and working to combat corruption. People may well have a growing ecological sensitivity, but it has not succeeded in changing their harmful habits of consumption, which rather than decreasing appear to be growing all the more. A simple example is the increased use of power of air conditioning. The markets, which immediately benefit from sales, stimulate ever greater demand. An outsider looking at our world would be amazed at such behavior, which at times appears self-destructive. In the meantime, economic powers continue to justify the current global system, where priority tends to be given to speculation and the pursuit of financial gain, which fail to take the context into account, let alone the effects on human dignity and the natural environment. Here we see how environmental deterioration and human and ethical degradation are closely linked. Many people will deny doing anything wrong because distractions constantly dull our consciousness of just how limited and finite our world really is. As a result, whatever is fragile, like the environment, is defenseless before the entrance of the deified market, which became the only rule, unquote. It is foreseeable that once certain resources have been depleted, the scene will be set for new wars, albeit under the guise of noble claims. War only does grave harm to the environment and to the cultural riches of people, risks which are magnified when one considers nuclear arms and biological weapons. Quote, despite the international agreements which prohibit chemical, bacteriological, and biological warfare, the fact is that laboratory research continues to develop new offensive weapons capable of all nature, unquote. Politics must take great in foreseeing new conflicts and addressing the causes which lead to them. But powerful financial interests move most resistant to this effort, and political planning tends to lack breadth of vision. What would induce anyone at this stage to hold on to power only to be remembered for their inability to take action when it was urgent and necessary to do so? In some countries, there are positive examples of environmental improvement. Rivers polluted for decades have been cleaned up. Native woodlands have been reclassified thanks to the environmental renewal project. Beautiful buildings have been erected, advances have been made in the production of non-polluting energy and in the improvement of public transportation. These achievements do not solve global problems, but they do show that men and women are still capable of intervening positively. For all our limitations, gestures of generosity, solidarity, and care cannot but well up within us, since we were made for love. At the same time, we can note the rise of a false or superficial ecology, which both give complacency and a cheerful recklessness, has often occurred in periods of deep crisis, which require bold decisions. We are tempted to think that what is happening is not entirely clear. Superficially, apart from a few obvious signs of pollution and deterioration, things do not look that serious, and the planet could continue as it is for some time. Such evasiveness serves as a license to carry on with our present lifestyles and models of production and consumption. This is the way human beings contrive to feed their self-destructive vices, trying not to see them, trying not to acknowledge them, delaying the important decisions and pretending that nothing will happen. Okay, section 7. And, okay, we've got to read this one. A variety of opinions. A variety of opinions. Finally, we need to acknowledge that different approaches and lines of thought have emerged regarding this situation and its possible solutions. At one extreme, we find those who doggedly oppose the myth of progress and tell us that ecological problems will solve themselves simply with the application of new technology and without any need for ethical considerations or deep change. At the other extreme are those who view men and women and all their interventions as no more than a threat, jeopardizing the global ecosystem and consequently the presence of human beings on the planet should be reduced and all forms of intervention prohibited. Viable future scenarios will have to be generated between these extremes because since there is no one path to a solution, this makes a variety of proposals possible, all capable of entering into dialogue with a view of developing comprehensive solutions. On many concrete questions, the Church has no reason to offer a definitive opinion. She knows that honest debate must be encouraged among experts while respecting divergent views, but we need only take a frank look at the facts to see that our common home is falling into serious disrepair. Hope would have us recognize that there is always a way out, that we can always redirect our steps, that we can always do something to solve the problem. Still, we can see signs that things are now reaching a breaking point due to the rapid pace of change and degradation. These are evident in large-scale natural disasters as well as social and even financial crises. For the world's problems cannot be analyzed or explained in isolation. There are regions now at high risk. Aside from all doomsday predictions, the present world system is certainly unsustainable from a number of points of view. But we have stopped thinking about the goals of human activity. So if we scan the regions of our planet, we immediately see that humanity has disappointed God's expectations. Unquote. Chapter 2, the Gospel of Creation. Why should this document address to all people with goodwill include a chapter dealing with the convictions of believers? I am well aware that in the areas of politics and philosophy, there are those who firmly reject the idea of a creator or consider it irrelevant and consequently dismiss as irrational the rich contribution which religions can make towards an integral ecology and the full development of humanity. Others view religion simply as a subculture to be tolerated. Nonetheless, science and religion, with their distinct approaches to understanding reality, can enter into an intense dialogue, fruitful for both. The light offered by faith. Given the complexity of the ecological crisis and its multiple causes, we need to realize that the solution will not emerge from just one way of interpreting and transforming reality. Respect must also be shown for the various cultural riches of different peoples, their art and poetry, their interior life and spirituality. If we are truly concerned to develop an ecology capable of remedying the damage we have done, no branch of science and no form of wisdom can be left out, and that includes religion and the language particular to it. So the Catholic Church is open to dialogue with philosophical thought. This has enabled her to produce various syntheses between faith and reason. The development of the Church's social teaching represents such a synthesis with regard to social issues. This teaching is called to be enriched by taking up new challenges. Furthermore, although this encyclical welcomes dialogue with everyone so that together we can seek paths of liberation, I would like from the onset to show how faith convictions can offer Christians and some other believers as well ample motivation to care for nature and for the most vulnerable of their brothers and sisters. It's a simple fact that being human moves people to care for the environment of which they are a part. Christians in their turn realize that their responsibility within creation and their duty towards nature and the Creator are an essential part of their faith. It is good for humanity and the world at large when we believers better recognize the ecological commitment which stems from our conviction, the wisdom of the biblical account. Without repeating the entire theology of creation, we can ask what the great biblical narratives say about the relationship of human beings with the world. In the first creation account of the book of Genesis, God's plan includes creating humanity. After the creation of man and woman, quote, God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good, unquote. The Bible teaches that every man and woman is created out of love and made in God's image and likeness. This shows us the immense dignity of each person, quote, who is not just something, but someone. He is capable of self-knowledge, self-possession, and of freely giving himself and entering into communion with other persons, unquote. St. John Paul II stated that the special love of the Creator for each human being, quote, confers upon him or her an infinite dignity, unquote. Those who are committed to defending human dignity can find in the Christian faith the deepest reasons for this commitment. How wonderful is the certainty that each human life is not adrift in the midst of hopeless chaos in a world ruled by pure chance or endless recurring cycles. The Creator can say to each of us, quote, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, unquote. We were conceived in the heart of God, and for this reason, quote, each of us is the result of a thought of God. Each of us is willed, each of us lost, each of us necessary. Unquote. The creation account and the book of Genesis contain, in their own symbolic and narrative language, profound teachings about human existence and its historical reality. They suggest that human life is grounded in three fundamental and closely intertwined relationships with God, with our neighbor, and with the earth itself. According to the Bible, these three vital relationships have been broken, both outwardly and within us. This rupture is sin. The harmony between the Creator, humanity, and creation as a whole was disrupted by our presuming to take the place of God and refusing to acknowledge our creaturely limitations. This in turn distorted our mandate, quote, to have dominion over the earth and to, quote, till it and keep it, unquote. As a result, the originally harmonious relationship between human beings and nature became conflictual. It is significant that the harmony which St. Francis of Assisi experienced with all creatures was seen as a healing of that rupture. St. Bonaventure held that through universal reconciliation with every creature, St. Francis in some way returns to the state of original innocence. This is a far cry from our situation today, where sin is manifest in all its destructive power in wars, the various forms of violence and abuse, the abandonment of the most vulnerable, and attacks on nature. We are not God. The earth was here before us, and it has been given to us. This allows us to respond to the charge that Judeo-Christian thinking on the basis of Genesis account, which grants man, quote, dominion over earth, has encouraged the unbridled exploitation of nature by painting him as domineering and destructive by nature. This is not a correct interpretation of the Bible and understood by the church. Although it is true that we Christians have at times incorrectly interpreted the scripture, nowadays we forcefully reject the notion of that our being created in God's image is given dominion over the earth, justifies absolute dominion over other creatures. Texts are to be read in their context with an appropriate hermeneutic, recognizing that they quote, till and keep the garden of the world. Tilling refers to cultivating, plowing, working. Keeping means caring, protecting, overseeing, preserving. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. Each community can take care of the bounty of the earth, whatever it needs for subsistence. But it also has the duty to protect the earth and to ensure its fruitfulness for coming generations. Quote, the earth is the Lord, unquote. To him belongs, quote, the earth with all that is within it, unquote. Thus God rejects every claim to absolute ownership. Quote, the land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me, unquote. This responsibility for God's earth means that human beings endowed with intelligence must respect the laws of nature and the delicate equilibria existing between the creatures of this world, for, quote, he commanded, and they were created, and he established for them ever and ever. He fixed their bounds, and he set a law which cannot pass away, unquote. The laws found in the Bible dwell on relationships, not only among individuals, but also with other living beings. Quote, you shall not see your brother's donkey or his oxen falling down by their ways without and withhold your help. If you chance to come upon a bird's nest in a tree or on the ground with young ones or eggs, and the mother sitting upon the young or upon the edge, you shall not take the mother with the young, unquote. Along these same lines, rest on the seventh day is meant not only for human beings, but also, quote, so that your ox and your donkey may have rest, unquote. Clearly, the Bible has no place for a tyrannical anthropocentrism, unconcerned with other creatures. I think we have maybe 5 minutes. Should I continue or?
No, go on, continue. And about 2 minutes beforehand, we'll end the program.
Right. Together with our obligation to use the earth's goods responsibly, we are called to recognize that other living beings have a value of their own in God's eyes. Quote, by their mere existence, they bless him and give him glory. And indeed, quote, the Lord rejoices in all his works. By virtue of our unique dignity and our gifts of intelligence, we are called to respect creation and its inherent laws. For, quote, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. In our time, the church does not simply state that other creatures are completely subordinate to the good of human beings, as if they have no worth in themselves and can be treated as they wish. The German bishops have taught that where other creatures are concerned, quote, we can speak of the priority of being over that of being useful. The Catechism clearly and forcefully criticizes the distorted anthropocentrism. Quote, each creature possesses its own particular goodness and perfection. Each of the various creatures willed in its own being reflects in its own way a ray of God's infinite wisdom and goodness. Man must therefore respect the particular goodness of every creature to avoid any distorted use of things. Unquote. In the story of Cain and Abel, we see how envy led Cain to commit the ultimate injustice against his brother, which in turn ruptured the relationship between Cain and God, and between Cain and the earth on which he was banished. This is seen clearly in the dramatic exchange between God and Cain. God asked, quote, where is Abel, your brother? Cain answered that he does not know, and God persists. Well, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground. Disregard for the duty to cultivate and maintain a proper relationship with my neighbor, for whose care and custody I am responsible. Ruin my relationship with my own self and with others, with God and with the earth. When all these relationships are neglected, when justice no longer dwells in the land, the Bible tells us that life itself is endangered. We see this in the story of Noah, where God threatened to do away with humanity because of its constant failure to fulfill the requirements of justice and peace. Quote, I am determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence, Susan, unquote. These ancient stories, full of symbolism, bear witness to a conviction which we today share that everything is interconnected, and that genuine care for our own lives and for our relationships with nature is inseparable from fraternity, justice, and faithfulness to others. Although, quote, the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and the Lord, quote, was sorry that he had made man on the earth, nonetheless, through Noah, who remained innocent and just, God decided to open a path of salvation. In this way, he gave humanity the chance for a new beginning. All it takes is one good person to restore hope. The biblical tradition clearly shows that this renewal entails recovering and respecting the rhythms inscribed in nature by the hands of the Creator. We see this, for example, in the law of Sabbath. On the seventh day, God rested from all his work. He commanded Israel to set aside each seventh day as a day of rest, the Sabbath. Similarly, every 7 years, a sabbatical year was set aside for Israel, a complete rest for the land. When sowing was forbidden, and one reaped only what was necessary to live on and to feed one's household. Finally, after 7 weeks of years, which is to say 49 years, the Jubilee was celebrated as a year of general forgiveness and both liberty throughout the land for all its inhabitants, unquote. This law came about as an attempt to ensure balance and fairness in their relationships with others and with the land on which they lived and worked. At the same time, it was an acknowledgement that the gift of the earth with its fruit belongs to everyone. Those who tilled and kept the land were obliged to share its fruits, especially with the poor, with widows, orphans, and foreigners in their midst. Quote, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your fields to its very border. Neither shall you gather the gleanings after the harvest, and you shall not strip your vineyards bare.
We're gonna have to take. We're gonna have to stop. We're gonna try to get this all out on YouTube one day, and it's not on YouTube at all. This is amazing. I can't find it. No one's read this entire thing. Anyway, thank you all for listening. This has been Bridges Programming, Sunday on the Front Stoop. Dennis Carrier, Susan Coleman did all the reading on this.
It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel and sunlight ripple on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. And mines go down and prices soar, our future is stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back until we are cold. Energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. It's you forgot. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees, even trash can burst the biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil. Renewables can heal the world. We're here to spread the news of energy. Energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well,
Chucky.
It all comes down to